Okay, I'll tell you one very interesting thing. Okay? It's so-called job market signaling model by ICEF. This model was run the public practice, and it shows one interesting and maybe counterintuitive result. So that education may be useful, even if nobody cares about what students learn. Okay. Now, in this model makes some very extreme assumptions that what schools, universities teach has no impact on subsequent performance of students. However, students still want to go to university, they still want to study, even though university studies are just a nuisance for them, just a burden. Why do they do it? Because for them, it's the way to distinguish, it's the way for good students to distinguish themselves from bad ones. So in this model, there are two kinds of young people or potential workers. Some are kind of high level and some are low level. And of course, employers want to prefer to hire high level people, high level employees, as long as they have to pay the same salary. So they are ready to pay lower salary to lower level. I can say smart and stupid. Okay, let's call them smart young people and stupid young. Okay? So the smart, they are smarter, and so they deserve higher wage. Okay, stupid ones are stupid, so they can still work, they're still paid, but they're paid lower wage. Okay, again, in this model, education is just a burden. Okay, even smart students, they do not enjoy education. It's burden for them. However, again, they may be willing to go to university and to endure the burden of education, of studying at university, to pursue, to show to prospective employers that they're smart. Okay, so if smart students can prove, can signal their type, can show that they're smarter than the stupid ones, then they may get higher salary. And in order to get higher salary, they are willing to undertake the university studies, to go to university. Okay? So again, it's a signaling game. And I will try to minimize the use of game theory concepts, but I will still mention them sometime. Okay? But I will try to explain it to those of you who have never studied game theory. Okay? So there is a worker, worker is a young man or potential worker or potential student. Okay, so young man or woman who wants a job. Okay, and there are two firms, or maybe more firms, it doesn't really matter, who would like to get the information about the productive ability of this young man. Okay, so it can be high, denoted by theta H, or low theta L. Okay, and it's known that the example probability of being high type, of being smart, is Q. Okay, so the worker or this young man knows his ability. Okay, the university, I'm sorry, the employers, firms do not know. But if this young man can show they have certain level of schooling, then the level of schooling or the number of years, it can actually signal whether they are high type or low type. Okay. So the firms observe only level of education, and so they make job offers, which may be the same, maybe, I mean, sometimes firms offer the same level of wage to all workers, sometimes they can differentiate. Okay, and of course, the worker accepts the highest job. Yes. Okay. Okay. Now, two important concepts. So C is the cost of education. So education is costly, is a burden. Here, nobody enjoys the education. Okay, and the more years you study, so E is the it's possible to see. Okay, so E is the number of years of education. Okay, and theta is the type. So generally, lower types have higher cost of education. Okay, so if you don't study, then your cost of education is zero. So you can see it here. So for both low type and high type, the cost of education is zero if you don't study. Okay, if it's positive, then it's positive. Okay, now this is a very important picture which I will be using here a lot. It shows in different curves. So these are curves, blue and red, show different combinations of wage and level of education that gives this young man the same level of happiness or utility or welfare. Okay, so what does it mean? That you can have, if you have to endure more years of education, then you have to be paid more to compensate for these time spent on education. Okay, and you can see that for the low type, so for the stupid ones, okay, this indifference curve is steeper. This means that stupid student or stupid young man have to be compensated with higher wage for each additional level of education. Okay, so they dislike education. So both smart and stupid dislike education, but the stupid dislike education more. They have to be compensated with higher wage. Okay, and this is why there is this single cost in property. So any indifference curve of the stupid would intersect the indifference curve of the smart only once and from below. Okay. Okay. If there are any questions, please ask. Does it make sense? Do you follow my English? Okay. Okay. I want to give you a disclaimer. I am using slides of my colleague Tatiana Maiska, who is also a professor here at ICEF and also Faculty of Economic Sciences. And if you come to our program, then you will see these slides again, probably. So you will have to learn this model in the microeconomics group. Now, these variable theta, it has two meanings. It has the level of productivity of the work and the wage. And actually the wage, because there is competition between firms for the worker, then wage actually would be always equal to the productivity. Okay? If you learned a bit of microeconomics, then you know why it happens. Workers are paid the marginal product of labor. So if you are smart, you're high type, so you have higher marginal product of labor, your wage is high. Okay? So for simplicity in this model, theta and W will be used interchangeably. Okay? So again, So theta is the type, W is the age. The equilibrium wage orders. So mu, one more variable, mu is the probability that the worker's ability is theta h, okay? And the firm computes this probability given the level of education. Okay. Now, as I said, so the competition among firms drives the wage rate to the expected probability. Okay. Okay. Now, the benchmark case, when there is no uncertainty about the worker type. Okay. So firms know who is smart, who is stupid. Okay. What do you think? Would anybody go to university in that case? Would anyone go to university if firms know who is smart, who is stupid, who is high type, who is low type? No, correct, yes. So education here is only the way to prove that you're smart. If firms know right away who is smart, who is stupid, then nobody will study. Okay, I mean, it's proven mathematically, but it gets kind of obvious. Okay. But now let's talk about signaling. So we'll have two different equilibria: separating equilibrium and pooling equilibrium. In a pooling equilibrium means that smart and stupid pool. So they get the same level of education. Okay, therefore, the farmers do not know who is smart, who is stupid, and they get the same wage. Okay, and the separating equilibrium, stupid and smart get different levels of education, and therefore they get different salary. Okay. Hold on, some time on it. Okay, again. So separating equilibrium means that mu of pH equals 1. So what does it mean? This means that if you have high level of education, then the firms know that you're high type and you're smart. They know it with certainty. And if you have low level of education, then firms know that you're low type, and therefore the probability that you're high type is 0. Okay. And the wage given the education is basically your expected type. Okay. So mu of phi is the probability that you are high type times that age, your productivity if you are high type, plus probability that you're low type times your productivity when you're low type. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on math here. I just want to go to graphs to show you some graphs. Okay. So again, the graphs here are the key. Okay. Again, graphs show the combination of the level of education and the wage. What does this point show? Okay. This point shows that if level of education is 0 and the firm knows that you're low type, the firm knows that your productivity is theta L, this is exactly your wage. Okay. If you get higher level of education and the firm knows that your productivity is theta H, then this is your wage. Okay. So this red point is the point for the high type, blue point is the point for the low. Okay. Again, this is the indifference curve. Okay. Indifference curve for the low type, for the stupid. Okay, so it goes through the point, through this point, goes to this point 0 and theta L, and it connects all other points where the worker, potential worker is indifferent between level of education and the wage. Okay, so again, the curve is upward sloping. It shows that to incentivize the stupid one to get higher education, he needs to be paid more. Okay. Now, why do we have this expression? This is exactly the indifference condition. So the worker, the stupid one, is indifferent between getting the salary of theta L and getting higher salary W, but enduring the cost of education. Okay, so so C of E and theta L is the cost of education if he is low type and spends E years in school. Okay, and we see that this graph is shown to be above this red point. What does it mean? It means that the low type, the stupid type, does not want to be here. So to get this level of education, EH, he expects higher wage which is above theta H. Okay, so theta H is not enough for him to spend time on education. Okay, makes sense? Yes, no? Okay. So low type prefers low level of education, which is 0, of course, to the high level of education. Okay, now here we show the indifference curve, the difference curve of the high type. Okay, so it goes through this point, and this point shows that shows different combinations of W and E, such that the welfare or the level of happiness of the smart type is the same as in this point. Okay, so theta H minus C of EH and theta H is his level of happiness, or as we say in economics, the level of utility that he enjoys in this point. And this red curve shows all different combinations of W and E. Okay. Okay, and you see it's also important that the red curve, the indifference curve of the high type, intersects the vertical axis above this point theta L. Okay, so the high type does not dislike education as much as low type, and therefore, if he gets lowest salary with no education, he still prefers, he insists on higher remuneration, higher wages. Okay, so for the high type, this red point is better than the corresponding point on the indifference curve of the low type, and for the low type is the other way around. So the low type prefers this point. The low type prefers this point. Okay, and here we can also see the possible wage that incentivizes the low type to choose exactly theta L, and the high type to choose exactly, low type to choose EL, so 0, and to choose high type EH. Okay, I told you the very basics of this model. So if you have any questions, please ask. And then if you don't have questions, I will have a small discussion of applicability of this model to Russia, to our reality. Okay? Yes.